How's it going?
Wonderful. How are you?
Good.
So we've been hard at work. We're getting into summertime now. We are sitting in what I'll call our new recording studio / everybody can see a green screen behind me. I don't know how to use a green screen, which is green, which is cool. But we've been working on our customer service room. So essentially what that means is, we were kind of thinking about things, and Riley was talking in the last podcast how he doesn't have a stand set up at home yet. And I realized a lot of people don't have places to work on their bikes at home, or they're just, even if you do have like a nice garage setup, you're probably not going to have every tool that you really need to work on your bike. So I got my head going. So last week we put a workbench, we cleared out our storage room. This is like, 12 by 20 foot room.
Something like maybe a little smaller. I'm not good with dimensions. To count
it's actually 6 by 6 inches.
It probably is.
So we cleared it out. We took our workbench from the old shop, got it set up, got the tools we've got behind you. So we're kind of starting off a little bit basic. Yeah. The idea here is going to be that people are going to be able to rent out the stand. They can bring their own bike in. They can work on it. If me and you are here working with customers, then they're kind of on their own back here. But the idea is that we can kind of help guide people throughout the repair. Some people don't need that at all. They just don't have all the right tools, or maybe they're worried that they won't have the right tool. So the work stand is going to be an awesome place for them. Or, a lot of times when you're working on your bike, you get to a point, you start pulling stuff apart and you realize, I just pulled my cranks out, my bottom bracket's toast. Now you got to run down to the bike shop, buy a bottom bracket, order it, whatever you're doing. So now when you open that up and your bottom bracket's toast, you can just come right out to the shop, grab it. We'll start a layaway for you. And any parts that you need, you can just add on as go. So really nice for the home mechanic. And the other big thing is, like, even if you think you know how to do something, we're going to set up a TV screen in here for YouTube so people can watch Calvin on Park Tool. We got the big blue bicycle repair book.
It's sweet, actually.
Yeah, it's really nice. So we'll have all those tools here. So if you're an independently minded person, you can kind of do your own thing. But then always our mechanics right there. I'm out in the front. Both Brett and I are certified mechanics. Actually, the school I went to, Calvin from Park Tool, was the first professor there at the Barnett Bicycle Institute. So really awesome there. So we're here to help kind of guide you if you want it. We do plan on doing 1 day a week where maybe for a little bit more expense, you can rent the stand out. And then Brett, like, we're thinking maybe on Thursdays, we'll have open bookings to where you could book the mechanic and the stand and you, to where you're working on your bike, but you got the mechanic there with you every single step of the way. So if you're working on something new, maybe you haven't done before, or that seems a little bit confusing, you can have the mechanic actually stand in the room with you step by step through everything to make sure you're doing it perfect. So that's really cool. Or I see more people just using it as they're going to come here, work on their own bike. They're going to get to a point that's a little bit confusing. They're going to come out on the sales floor, grab me or you. We're going to come back here, show them real quick, and move on. Yeah. So, super dope.
The biggest thing is probably drivetrains. No one knows how to do their own drivetrains.
Yeah.
That's kind of the biggest thing.
Yep. I have a mind map that if anybody wants to DM Mom Bike Shed on Instagram or Facebook, you can DM me your email address and I will send it to you, because it's really wide and won't print out on like a regular sheet of paper. So you have to be able to zoom in. But it is a step-by-step guide on how to adjust your derailleur. As long as you follow the steps that I created, then your derailleur will work perfect every time, as long as you follow these steps clean through it, which is really neat, because I think derailleurs really confuse people a lot of times. So if you do something like this and you follow us, and we're able to kind of teach that. And I had to come up with a mind map because it was part of my occupational therapy after my brain injury. They wanted you to like write out steps of things and, kind of help rehab me. And I did that. And then now I think it's got some really good use. So, DM us for that. I will gladly email it to anybody. Maybe at some point I'll figure out a way to get like files on our webpage where people can download any different bits of info.
Yeah. Or just put links to like Park Tool videos.
Or if you can find out how to do the QR code links to things, you can just post that on your wall or scan it on your phone every time you walk in here.
I forgot to introduce you, Jenna. Everybody knows who the champ is. Amateur champion, Missouri Enduro Series, Chubb 2021-22 So still pretty proud of you. I know there was another race, the Missouri Enduro Series. You had other commitments you had to go to that were a bit more important than mountain biking, so you were not able to do the enduro race. So I'm not going to say you forfeit your title. I think you're still the champ, at least still St. Gnarls.
Thanks.
So still champ. And then next to the champ, we've got Jenna, who I did not introduce. Jenna, do you want to say something about yourself?
Yeah, so I'm actually a transplant from Louisville, Kentucky. That's my closest major city. I am definitely a drop bar enthusiast. I'm not so much into the dirt world, except for my new thing the last couple of years has been ultra endurance gravel racing. In just 2 weeks, I'm actually going to be hitting Unbound Gravel 200, which formerly is known as Dirty Kansas. That's been my baby for the last several years. Unfortunately, things got derailed with COVID, just as it did with everybody. But that has been kind of the central thing to my heart for a while. And I know that there's just going to be some carryover into mountain biking, just because that community is definitely more tight with each other than the roadies have been. So yeah, thank you for having me here. I'm really excited about it.
We're stoked, dude. And I like having you in the shop because it's definitely getting me back on the thought process road. Because you're very like mountain biker for a roadie. Like you live the van life. You work outdoors all day. You definitely ride gravel. You went mountain biking at the Eureka Mountain Bike Park last night. You did a pretty kick butt job. But yeah, no, it's awesome having you here. We're stoked. And then hopefully, when we originally opened the shop, the reason I called the Mountain Bike Shed because we needed to do that to build trails. But the other half of it is I know nothing about road biking. I don't even know like what parts they use or what any of the standards are. It's all very confusing to me. So that's why we've never done that. However, Eureka is a really beautiful place. We do have a lot of really cool hills. We don't have a ton of traffic. A lot of folks do ride road bikes out here. So, the goal this summer is to maybe get some more maybe even get a road ride organized, do something to kind of get people more in here, because I think it took you a while to come into the shop because we are called the Mountain Bike Shed. So, I think that was, you're like, I don't know if they're going to be nice to me in there. I don't know if they're going to be assholes or what. So
it was definitely some tricky marketing, mostly because I do not like walking into shops without feeling like I have some context already or feel like I know what I'm talking about on some front. But it was, the closest shop for me without basically driving into downtown St. Louis with my gas guzzling vehicle was to go to the other direction to Washington. And that, especially with the gas prices that everybody wants to ignore, that was just becoming a little bit impractical. So I'm so thankful that whenever I walked in here, for one, I wasn't in my roadie kit, because that might have set the wrong tone, but it was also just a very warm welcome. And being a transplant from Louisville and having lived in and raced in several different cities, I have contacts from shops all over the place, and you do get a very different welcome, especially when you're an unknown entity. And that thankfully was not the experience here. It was just kind of, oh, here's another person, just like anybody else that's into bikes. And so that was a good vibe to get right off the bat.
Yeah, dude. And you bring up a good point. That was one of the kind of motivators to why we opened the shop originally. Because I felt when I went into shops that I don't know, it's just a weird vibe. I didn't feel right when people went in, and I was like, this is my hobby, this is my passion, this is what I love doing. I do it every day. And I go into shops, I would always leave just feeling kind of gross. I was like, why? Well, this shouldn't be happening. If we want to get more people into biking, it starts in the shops. We have to be more welcoming to newer riders or people we don't know or whatever it may be. And so yesterday I am back in the market for a street bike. I sold mine last year, but so I want to get back. I'm looking for another bike. I don't really know what I want. So I started going to a couple dealerships, and very quickly, when I walked in there and everybody was nice, but I had to pry for information, and I don't know, it was just super standoffish. And I was like, oh yeah, this is how bike shops are. Because when I was driving to the motorcycle dealer to go figure, I have no idea what I want. So I'm like, this is awesome. I'm going to go find a salesman. I'm going to tell him everything about me, and then he's going to tell me what bike I need to get. And then boom, problem solved. And it wasn't like that. I had to pry into this guy just to get him to answer questions. I was like, why am I having to do this? I'm like, I kind of go over the top of my customers, but it made me realize I had so much excitement driving there. And by the time I left, I couldn't have been more disappointed. I'm like, I'm trying to buy something that I love, that I have a ton of passion for, that I think's exciting. And I went into the place that has those things and they completely blew it. And not even being rude, but just like not connecting with me and not really diving into like, okay, what's your motivation here? Why do you want to bike? Where are you going to ride it? What is it? What do you think you're going to feel like when you're riding? And that's all key questions we try to ask our riders. Like, what kind of riding do you do? Where do you ride? Where do you like riding? You know, how do you feel when you ride? Like, it's all really key stuff. So it was a big eye opener to me. I maybe get a little bit jaded. I know over the first year or two, you know, I was, and I still, I think I overwhelm my customers with too much information very often. A lot of them have to be like, I have to leave. I can't keep talking to you, dude. But like, it was a good reminder for me that I need to kind of step back and make sure that my customers aren't feeling that way. Because it's the same thing. Like, I'm not an expert on motorcycles. I've only had a couple bikes in my life. You know, I'm not a stunt dude or anything along those lines. I just like to go fast. I like adrenaline. I like back roads. So that's me. So I don't really know any of it. So I had a lot of questions. And I was hoping this expert there could really guide me, but he didn't. And he just couldn't sense. And like, I tried like giving him an explanation of who I am, what I look for, and then ask questions accordingly. He just could not tailor those responses to me. And that's what we try to do here in the shop. I think, you know, I always tell Alex and the other guys, like, our main job is finding out what you want to do and then helping you get there. And in part of that, we don't have a ton of stuff for road bikes and stuff like that. So I look forward to having more conversations with you to try to sort out maybe what those are, because you're not like a typical road cyclist, I would say. You know, when I imagine a road cyclist in St. Louis, I kind of think of like kind of folks maybe sometimes they're a little bit uppity. I don't know, and I shouldn't even say it because, you know, the road cyclists, when they do come in, have all been very nice.
Yeah.
And
There is a stereotype, though.
there is a definite stereotype.
Most people know about the stereotype.
Right. So good. I don't have to get in any deeper. Jenna does not fit that at all. She has a very mountain biker stereotype. And not to say that's why we were nice to her when she came in the store. But yeah, I don't know. What do you think, Alex?
What? About the stereotype? Or
yeah, just about Sarah. What do you think about like experience in shops and like,
yeah,
because like Jenna had to have, like, she didn't come in here for a while because she was worried how we would react to her.
yeah,
And people worry about that before they go into any bike shop, in motorcycle shops, bike shops, all that.
I know when I first started riding, for sure, like there was kind of a list of shops I could go to and couldn't go to, because there were some that just I didn't like, just because their attitudes, they would like push you out, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, there are definitely a few shops in the area that don't have that feeling,
Mm-hmm.
this being one of them. But
yeah,
you kind of have to pick and choose sometimes if you're not really in that community, if you don't know the people.
Yeah.
So it can kind of be overwhelming.
What things would shops do that would like turn you off?
If you ask like a simple question and they put you off and try to be snobby about it.
Mm-hmm.
I remember like going into shops with like a creak in my bike when I had like a month or so,
mm-hmm.
and then they would be like immediately super off-putting because they just
defensive.
Very defensive.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, stuff like that.
Yeah, and I notice I do that, and I have to catch myself. And I think often you guys, after a customer walks away, I always have to ask you guys, like, was I a little bit?
Yeah.
Was I not like at the level I should be, or was I too aggressive, or was I snotty, or was I, you know? So I notice it after the fact because it is really hard. It's
easy to do in the market for sure. I mean, when you have like $300 bikes come in, when we have a $12,000 mountain bike sitting out front, like it's a really hard gap to push.
Yeah, and it's hard to explain because like, and I try to do my best to not sound like I'm like talking over people and stuff, but yeah, it's hard when you have that $200 bike come in. They're like, well, it's not shifting right, and you guys just tune it up. It's like, well, it's not going to. It's got a $30 derailleur on it. Like, I don't ride a $250 derailleur on my bike because I just like to waste my money. Like, I want good shifting, so you have to pay for that, and you didn't pay for that, and so it's weird. And like, or like we get the same questions very often. So like I notice, and like it used to really piss me off at bike shops when I come in and I'd be treated that way, or I'd ask them, they'd just be like, no. I'm like, what do you mean no?
Well, I think it's also like
but they get it so much.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing too. There's like questions that like, oh, I have a creak in my bike. Like, sure, but there's more to it than just like a simple creak, you know? Like it could be like bad bottom bracket. It could be a cracked frame.
Right.
Like there's a whole lot of different things that it could be just besides a little creak.
Yeah, and it's hard too because I think maybe some of this snottiness comes off on just a customer not understanding why somebody's saying that. Because like somebody will come in, they'll be like, "My gears are skipping a little bit. Can you look at it real fast for me?" It's like probably not, or like a simple brake adjustment. They're like, "Hey, my brakes aren't working. Can you tighten them up for me a little bit?" It's like, well, no, I can't just tighten your brakes up because first I need to take your wheel. If you got rim brakes, if you're on a road bike or something, first I got to take your wheel off true your wheel. So I got to make sure your wheel's perfectly straight. If your wheel's not perfectly straight, I can't adjust your brakes. So now I got to true your wheel. That's $30. And that takes me 15, 20 minutes. Then I got to put your wheel back on, and then I got to adjust your brake pads, and I got to adjust your cable. So it's not a matter of just snugging up the cable for you in order for everything to work properly. I've got to completely reset, or even, like often the one I hate not being able to do is derailleur adjustments on the stop for people. I'll give it like a quick run through and I'll just do a few simple things, but it's another one of those things where like people think like, oh, this only takes a minute. Why are they saying no? They won't do that. It's like, as soon as I dig into it, it's going to be a billion other problems. And I can't just work on bikes. And like Jenna rode my bike yesterday out at the park. So I took Lemon's Elroy, which was filthy. So because he had tournament this weekend, so he wasn't able to get back to his bike. So my problem when I work on bikes, and this is why I'm not the bike mechanic, because we would go broke so fast. Bike has to be spotless before I work on it. I never would ride dirty bikes. I cannot work on dirty bikes because it's like, how do I tell what's going on? I want to inspect your frame, make sure that frame's not totaled, and then I do a bunch of work on it for no reason. So I always clean bikes up before I can work on them. So if you bring your bike into a bike shop, have it cleaned up. If it's dirty, the mechanic, instead of spending an hour working and fixing your bike, he's going to spend a half hour cleaning your bike and then a half hour getting your bike just running. So clean your bike before you bring it in a shop. Like do not ever bring a dirty bike in. If you go for a ride and your bike breaks, then stop by a gas station, buy a big thing of water with a squirt thing on it, and squirt your bike down. Like that is one that, like, as a bike, like I don't ever say anything to customers about it when they come in because the bike's already here at that point. And then it just comes off snotty, and it is one of those situations. Whereas if like somebody brings a bike, I'm like, please, we're going to charge you $20 extra. Do not bring your bike in dirty. It's for the person who's coming in who's already nervous about being in a bike shop and stuff. It would be super off-putting for me to say that to anybody. But please, if you're listening to this, clean your bike before you bring it into a bike shop. Dude.
One thing though, too, like if it's a little dusty, like mine's a little dusty after riding in the bike park, which I would say this would be fine to bring in.
Yes.
But like if you go through a puddle and you got like mud up
scraping
and down
mud off. Is not cool.
Like we don't want to be scraping mud off.
Well, and it's like, how do you expect somebody to work on your bike if it's dirty?
We can't adjust the drivetrain if it's caked in mud or like old grease.
So like, stuff happens like that. And that's where the issue is. And like, and maybe some of the problems, I don't know. I don't tell the problems I ran into yesterday looking at a bike was mine. Except for like, I went to one dealership and they can't like special order anything. Cause I was like, okay, well, you obviously don't have any bikes in right now. Is it possible for you to order one for me? Like some of our bikes are like 2 years out. So, but if it's something I really want, I'll wait for it. I don't care. And he was like, we can't order anything. But he said it like real sharp. Yeah. And I was like, you could have like, but then like
that's kind of something
3 other people walked in after me and asked him the exact same question. I was like, oh, this guy gets that question 19 times a day. And he's so frustrated that he can't help his customer. He's just like, nope. Can you order it for me? Nah, we can't order anything. Or like, do you know when, or like, okay, do you have this on order? Yeah, we have it on order. When's it coming? I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we've had the same thing. It's been like 2 years now, I think.
But it still bothered me, and I know that. I own a bike shop, and I've had to deal with these ordering issues. Yeah, and I think I would have felt a lot worse about that had I not had the experience I have. And that's the thing that kind of resonated with me. Was I need to be doubly cautious about how I'm saying things to customers. But I don't deal with confrontation well. So like someone starts accusing me of something or that I did something wrong or like, that I screwed them over in some way. It's like, all right, no, that's not even possible. So like, I don't take it well. Like we had a weird customer situation just a moment ago, and it was, I don't know. So it's so hard. And normally I can catch myself. Like even if I feel really defensive at first, like somebody comes in, they're like, I just got this bike from you and this is happening. It's like, all right, well, you went mountain biking.
Yeah.
Like one time is enough to break anything. Like, and I don't actually manufacture these bikes. We just put the wheel on, make a few different adjustments here and there
I mean, we
to
check
make
it,
sure
make
it's
sure
good.
it's good. But I mean, you can always.
But yeah, we're not sliding the pivot bolts in. We're not putting bottom brackets on. That
Yeah.
stuff's already there. And if people wanted us to do that, your bike build is going to add, and you're going to have a $500 fee added on top of your bike build if you want to do something, because that's ultimately what a full rebuild is going to end up costing you. So, and people are already, they don't like the price of bikes so far. So.
That's kind of the issue with like all the new people getting into it, because people, like last week I had someone come in, they're like, what can I find between like $100 and $200 to get them on a trail? And it's just nothing. It's basically not an impossible question.
I don't even know if you can fill your gas. I don't know if you can get gas to get there for that amount of money.
I certainly cannot.
No,
I can't.
Right.
I can, but you guys probably can't.
But yeah, no. So I thought I've been thinking about that a lot this week, and just kind of trying to catch myself faster than, because normally I can feel myself do it, and then I can see in somebody's eyes that they're put off by it, and then that's enough for me to realize, like, oh shit, like I need to back this up, and I need to be a little bit more understanding and kind of try to put some stuff back on me, or relate to, like, a lot of times people do something like that with a bike. They'll get an entry level bike, and then they'll bring it back in. It'll be caked in mud, the drivetrain and everything. They're like, my thing broke. I just bought this bike. What the heck? It's like, yeah, dude. Like, and instead of saying like, well, your bike's filthy, that's why it's broken, man. Like, you broke it. It's gonna be $50 to replace that now. To where I could say like, oh, dude, like that sucks. I remember like when I first got my bike, I didn't realize we weren't supposed to be riding muddy trails. And, I thought when they told me I had a warranty, that meant that if anything happened, they were just going to replace it. I broke a derailleur once, brought back into the shop. I'm like, oh, hey, this happened. My chain fell off, whatever. I was riding through stuff. And then it broke my derailleur. They're like, okay, cool. We'll take care of it. Drop it off to them. Go pick it up later. And they're like, that's $150. I'm like, oh, I thought the bike was under warranty. And they're like, not for things you break. And I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense. So like, and they were
pretty good about explaining that though now. Maybe not 2 years ago, but for sure now. Like,
well, and this was at Southside, and at the time, I mean, this was the only mountain bike Southside had that I bought from them. And for many years later, like they would always only have like 1 or 2 mountain bikes, and that was every shop in St. Louis. Now everybody's selling mountain bikes. You're welcome, guys. But previously, there was never more than like 5 full suspension bikes. I mean, if a shop had 5 full suspension bikes, maybe a place like Baldwin or Momentum had like 5 of them in there. That was pretty extreme. Like that was crazy to see. You're like, holy smokes, But yeah, so I've been thinking about that a lot lately. I just really want to improve our customer experience. Like now, like Shepherd Mountain just happened this weekend. Typically I would be at events like that with the van. It was going to be too hot. I just knew I wasn't going to be able to handle it physically. And just like the demands of that much stimulation, that many people on my brain just really would probably knock me out for days. And I probably wouldn't be a lot of fun there. So we've stepped away from doing a lot of events and stuff. So of course we do this podcast. People can like it and subscribe it and do all those things to kind of stay in touch with us. But the other half was this room. And I wanted to give people that ability. And this is a private room. Like it's closed off. I'm going to rehang the door. So you can shut the door when you come in here. You can have complete privacy. You don't have to worry about people looking over your shoulder, bugging you, noises, distractions, all that. And I'm really excited about it. I don't, like I worked down at St. Louis Bicycle Works, and they have, it's a charity. And so I volunteered down there, but they have like 6 setups for people to work on bikes. Everybody's just working on free bikes and stuff like that. And eventually I would love to see something like that here, but we don't have any co-ops in St. Louis right now. And I'm not aware of any bike shop that has like a co-op room.
It is a really novel idea. There was a nonprofit in Louisville. I do believe it still runs. It kind of had a similar premise, but kind of backtracking a little bit to kind of the attitude when you walk into a shop. There are a lot of people that do lack the education that, are sincerely trying to kind of get their foot more in the door and learn what they're doing, and just, so they can fix their own, stuff. Especially when you're not close to a shop and you don't always or if you're kind of like me, where you don't necessarily have the education mechanically, but you are a pretty serious rider. And so you do kind of constantly need things to have that opportunity. But, whenever you come in and you're like, hey, can I rent a tool from you? It's a very honest question, but also one of those that I'm sure you get a lot of. And you're just kind of in it. Well, if we rent it to you, then we don't have one, that they don't necessarily understand. And so, there is that little bit of an impasse between kind of the beginner and the seasoned mechanic. But yeah, I haven't seen that. Again, I've been in a lot of shops I've worked into. Like I feel like I've kind of been several loops around with that. And so it is, especially with the emphasis on privacy, where if you want help, it's available to you. But if you just kind of want to troubleshoot it yourself, you have that option also. And I think that's spectacular.
Yeah. Well, and a lot of people too, like, let's say you do, you put on a ton of miles on the road. So you probably go through bottom brackets, fairly consistently, especially maybe on your gravel bike. So it's like, you being somebody who doesn't typically work on bikes, if you're like, okay, well, it would be nice if I could just swap my bottom bracket out since I'm doing this twice a year or whatever. And then you go into the shop and you're like, hey, I need a bottom bracket for my bike. They're like, what bottom bracket do you need? And you're like, I don't know. Or, or maybe you bring your bike in, they can see it. And then you're like, all right, what tools do I need? And then you're like, I don't know what tools I need. So that's the cool thing I like about the shop too, is like, at least that first time and you're like, okay, I'm going after that bottom bracket repair. Then you can come in here, find out what tools you actually use to do that job. And then, step out in the showroom, buy them. So the next time when you do it, you can just do it, wherever you want to do. You don't have to come in here, but yeah, I'm super stoked on it. And I like telling people what to do. So and not having to like actually do it for them. I rather show somebody how to do something, especially with mountain biking and road biking is gonna be the same problem. Like, we know when road bikes come in, it's going to be a huge work order because road bikers put so many miles on a bike. And it's just so consistent, just grinding. I feel like mountain bikes take a lot of abuse too, but it's a different kind of abuse.
You get a lot of like drivetrain and like wheel abuse. Well, I think more drivetrain for the road bikes. Probably. Yeah.
And when we realized what was happening with our bikes, especially mountain bikes, like, people will buy bikes, especially if they're newer to it. It takes you breaking things on your bike a certain amount of times, or else things you should not be doing out on the trail, things you need to be looking for. But that was the thing. Like, I would spend so much time in here with people on their bikes trying to explain to them how to do something for when they get back home. Then they got to drive home. They have no idea what I said to them. And then they probably don't have all the stuff that they need. So like, for me, just as a bike shop owner and like having to deal with warranties and our mechanic, our professional mechanic stand being overloaded, it's like, if I can get people in here and show them how to properly maintain their bike between rides, and more than just like lube your chain and wipe your stanchions down, then that'll help people that their bikes are going to work better and they're not going to have to come in here as much. And then we've got more time to work with people and actually do come in, because we're not in the back doing all that kind of stuff. And there's just like, I don't know, there's so much stuff that can go wrong. And like, like if you're out on the road and you have an issue out there, your gears aren't shifting right. It's like, okay, well, now I'm not going to be able to use my highest gear or my lowest gear. And how much is that going to affect me over a 100-mile ride or a 200-mile ride? It's really helpful if you're like, oh yeah, I've, been shown how to do this a bunch of times. I stop in the shop. And it also gives us the ability, if we've got like two people working out on the floor and you bring your bike in, it's not working quite right, I can say, here, come back in this stand with me and we'll let you work on it. We'll show you a little bit of something. But yeah, I mean, you get called with a mechanical, whether you're out in the woods 5 miles away or you're on the road 75 miles from where you started. Like, it's helpful to kind of have this background and confidence, because a lot of it's confidence too. Like,
well, it's things like, let's say you bend your derailleur hanger, a little like adjustment on your high and low screws could mean the matter of your chain completely obliterating your back wheel, like down the trail.
Yeah, you could do $1,000 worth of damage.
Yeah, or like if you have a little bit of knowledge, like you can know, like, oh, just set the high limit so you don't go into your spokes. But like, some people don't know that, and I mean, that's how you learn it, just by messing with your bike and stuff.
Yeah, and a derailleur hanger straightener tool, most folks do not own one of those. They do not have one at home. It's like $100 tool. So yeah, again, there's another opportunity where people can do it. And then, I think what will work out too is anybody who buys a bike from us will probably, depending on that level of that bike, give them a set amount of hours per year that they're able to have stand time to come in and work on their bike. think every bike will like throw in like 5 hours of stand time for the first year. So
I'd probably just say like either do like a first free tune-up or
stand time. No, or both. Probably both is necessary. But yeah, dude, I'm super stoked on it. And I think that'll help people a lot. And I think it'll help kind of make the atmosphere, make the store feel more like people's store, because, you know, that's what I look for when I was looking at my bike. It's like, all right, like when I buy cars, when I buy bikes, when I do anything, like I try to, and it was the same thing with, you know, before I opened my bike shop, at the bike shop I would go to, I'm very adamant about doing business with somebody. Like I don't like to just, especially bigger purchases, I don't like to just buy stuff and then I'll go somewhere else and get this and go somewhere else and get that. It's like, no, I'm going to find who I feel I can get the most from, and then I'll find a way to make sure I can just kind of utilize them. So I think in doing this, it really, you know, like I'm sitting on the futon here. We have some ideas to get a kegerator in here. Melvin Brewing, who helped us get the Eureka Mountain Bike Park started. Talking with them about maybe getting some new craft beers in here, you know, every month or something on the kegerator. But yeah, we got the couch here. Boys can come in and hang out, or your girls can come in and hang out with you. Dude, we always talk about, like, because on the podcast, my stats, like everybody's between 25 and 45. And then it's like 98% males just across the board. Instagram, I kind of have like a 50-50 following of men and women. So like, I always like, I'll say like men, and then I'll start to stop myself and say women. And then I'm like, women do not listen to this, which makes me very excited to have you here.
The women's disparity, it is changing, especially in road, off-road. I think a lot of it is just, it's just kind of like this in life. Like we are definitely more apt to kind of scope things out, be a little bit more timid, be a little bit more looking for more resource before we really step into anything that we're uncomfortable with. But I have seen that gradually changing, but a lot of it is, you know, it is like a psychological difference between men and women. And also it is pretty cliche, but I feel like it rings true that understanding what your customer base is, and then also appreciating the individual that comes through the door is part of, you know, connecting with your customer base. You, like you said earlier, you kind of want to know what they're riding, what their actual interest is. And I will say, you know, with my experience in shops, you know, even right after I moved here, I was still, when I needed, especially a big repair, I was driving back 4.5 hours to Louisville to my trusted shop, because I knew that they respected me for what I was doing and how rough I was on my bikes already. And I just connected with them because they were genuinely passionate about their job. And so, you know, there's plenty of resource here in St. Louis, but because I had already had that connection, I'm like, I'll just drive back because that's my safety net. That's where my people are. And so I was doing that for a while. And it wasn't until the last few months that I actually started like, all right, I got to be a little bit more practical about this. And that's still been hard to find, you know, to establish yourself as, especially as a woman. Hi, I'm serious. I kind of know what I'm doing, but, you know, I also live in a van. I'm not going to invest in $1,000 of tools for myself when especially when I don't know that much. That stuff is just super important, especially as a new person walking into a shop door.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think from the shop perspective too, us having a relationship with the customer always helps, because it does allow us to have a little bit more honest conversation with the customer, and like, especially in mountain bikes, because like a customer will come in with something that's an issue. It's like, bro, you know, you have to do this, and like where I maybe wouldn't do that with a regular customer. I think a big issue for women, or I think a big reason why it's hard for men. So most shops men are working in them. Some, you know, a shop might have like one woman that works there or two at most, but a majority of the time when you walk in, it's going to be all dudes. So the problem is that dudes are awkward. So it's not always that like they're trying to be dismissive or whatever, but like a girl comes in and we're used to seeing guys most of the time. So when a girl comes in, it's like, oh, there's a girl in here. What's she doing in here? And then and especially a lot of cyclists are kind of on the spectrum a little bit. So already a lot of us have poor social skills. And that's what just like people were comfortable around, and dudes of the same sex. And then you throw a woman into the mix, and then these guys sometimes, especially guys who work at bike shops, we are sometimes very weird, and it just, they get super awkward, and then it comes off as like rude or snotty when really like the guy's like, oh, what do we see this person, you know? So like that's a very small part of it, I think. You know, I've always been in a sales background, so like I don't think that stuff bothers me in our shop. I don't see that. I don't see anybody like get nervous around girls or anything.
There's definitely issues though in other places.
Yeah.
Well, maybe not. I don't know. I've never had the experience in a bike shop. I'm a dude.
As a girl.
Yeah, I've never been in a bike shop.
I mean, do you think it's a little bit of that, or am I completely off base?
So no, I do agree with that. So with me, I can really only speak for myself, but I am very perceptive of body language almost instantly when I walk through a door, because, you know, we do, especially when we're alone, we kind of have that instant, I have to read the room,
Mm-hmm.
even if there's no real threat. It's a bike shop, but
Right.
just still, we want to be in those comfortable environments.
Mhm.
And I think a lot of women in general are like that. We are kind of more quickly people reading to kind of establish, are we actually welcome, respected, seen here? And, you know, sometimes you kind of get off base on whether you read the situation correctly,
Sure.
but we are a little bit more discerning with kind of who we're going to trust, especially when there is that stereotype still out there that women aren't educated in these things. The same thing goes with auto mechanics. So, you know, with my vehicle being 35 years old,
Yeah.
I find myself having to kind of instantly establish myself as, hey, I have some knowledge. Please see me as an educated individual and not this helpless woman that's by herself. That's like, oh, my daddy's not here to help me. It's such a sad stereotype that does exist, and I've seen it a lot, especially when I'm moving around and I'm always kind of in a new place.
You're outside of your normal community.
What the heck is wrong with every industry that has wheels? It's like people don't like going to the mechanic, the auto mechanic, because everybody feels like they're always getting ripped off or whatever. And especially women, because they definitely kind of get talked to differently than men do in shops. Even though the last time I was in the shop, I was like, you need ball joints. I was like, front and rear. And he's like, you don't have ball joints on the rear. I was like, oh yeah, I know that.
You're just checking him.
Yeah, I was double checking to make sure you would know it. But like, so, you know, and he said it kind of snotty to me. And luckily, it's a shop I'm a regular at. So, but that was like kind of the thing. Like, he could say that snotty to me because we did have rapport and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Had that been the first time I walked in there and he said something like to me, I'd be like, yeah, dude, I'm not a mechanic. How would I know that? I don't know what the heck a ball joint does. What do I know? Maybe it has to articulate when the springs go up and down. Like, there possibly could be. I don't know. Maybe my truck's like one of the fancy Fords that all four wheels start and I need ball joints back there. But, you know, stuff like that to where like I was able to blow that off because I had a relationship with that shop already. But like, I'm sure he says that like, I'm sure those comments come out to everybody. So, you know,
especially like if you're going to
that was my first time talking with him. I'd dealt with the shop many times before, but like me and him didn't really know each other. I was comfortable there, so I didn't care. But
well, like if you go in a bike shop and you're like a first time bike buyer and like you have no idea what's going on and someone gets snotty with you, like you're not gonna go back.
Right.
And
there's a good chance you're not gonna buy anything either.
Right.
That's a situation where I think, you know, whoever was working the floor at that time failed to read the situation correctly because, you know, you have to take into account a person's lack of education and you kind of have to come down to their level.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you're immediately talking kind of, you know, with this elitist tone of, oh, I know everything and let me school you on it, that will kind of make people shut down, even if that's not the intent. But, you know, if you do have like that very obvious, like, I'm just tired of talking to people like you, I'm actually here just to sell bikes, you know, for people that want to pay, you know, 4 figures and up for one, you know, that stuff will show when you have that attitude. But you do, I think, whenever I worked in a shop, I was kind of used primarily as the retail face. I didn't get the opportunity to work on things. Because I was more of like the people reader, like I was good with them and especially with women because they saw me as like a non-threatening presence. But you do, if you're, I'm not even business minded, but you know, reading the situation pretty quickly when a person comes through and they present to you what their knowledge base is, meeting them there is a pretty good way to make them feel comfortable in an environment.
I think unfortunately though too, it's kind of like the industry standard is like, shops are known to be snotty.
Yeah.
It's hard not to be snotty if you're in a shop and everyone's known to be snotty. Like, that's just the way people are.
Right. Yeah. Bike shops
I mean,
are known to be pretentious.
Yeah.
In general.
It's a stereotype, just like what the road bikers are. Like,
Yeah.
it's no different than that.
And I mean, like road cycling, and it is very cliquey. I mean, like I was in Louisville for, I think I rode there for about 4 years, and I was kind of in and out of different groups, and us, you know, gender aside, just the clickiness of the who knows who's involved with who. I was always very just aware of that, and it was very uncomfortable for me because I didn't fit anywhere. And so I mostly just adopted riding solo, and that's kind of how I got into the ultra endurance stuff, is because I'm just like, I'm not necessarily comfortable with what you guys have going on.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a massively introverted person. I'm probably not going to approach somebody first.
Right.
And, you know, if they're just kind of, you're the ghost in the room, then it does kind of kill your confidence regardless of how much experience you have. But with road cycling, that clickiness is definitely very prevalent. And especially in road focused shops, there's also just that shop politic kind of thing going on. Like, if you're a good customer, regardless if you actually have a personal connection with them or not, you just get different treatment. And you know, they always have rides and stuff that are associated with that. And so it's again, back to me being kind of transient. It's hard to integrate yourself over and over again. That part gets very frustrating when all you're kind of looking for is, hi, I'm new to this city. I just want a place to go to buy my stuff and get my bikes taken care of. And you just notice those things fairly quickly.
You know, and I think here at our shop, like the entire goal was I expected to have everyone to have like their local bike shop that they normally go to and stuff. But since we were by all the trails, I was like, this will be killer because we'll just carry a bunch of stuff they can't get at their local bike shop. Now everybody carries the same stuff as me, but that was the case when we opened. And then like everybody would come that normally goes to different shops, and they would then come to my shop and buy some things. So like I was super into that in the beginning. I'm still into it now. Like I absolutely love selling like our entry level mountain bikes for like teenage kids, or like somebody buying their first mountain bike. Cause you know, when we've talked about this before, it's like, oh, this is so dope. Like, and I always like overwhelm them. Like, all right, if you're a teenager, we got Wheels Up MTB, we got Nike, we got this. Cause I just know that like, even if it's like a super introverted kid, that was kind of one of the things that sucked about that people that were in here before. Cause I was super stoked about getting that kid on a bike, but they didn't come back and grab it. We ended up having to sell it to somebody else 5 days later. So you snooze, you lose in this how the economy is right now. But no, it is really exciting because I know like when I can get somebody to buy a bike, a mountain bike especially, or if I can get somebody to buy one wheel or any of the other stuff, even if it's disc golf, like I know they're buying into a lifestyle. So for me, it's super exciting. So just if I get somebody new in, I'm always stoked, and I go way over the top with telling them way too much, more than they ever need to know on their first bike. Sometimes overwhelm them, but yeah, it is really neat. And I just wonder as an industry how we change that. Because like even I said earlier, it helps me working on a bike if I have a relationship with a customer, because then I kind of know, you know, what we need to do and not do. I know the riding styles. I know what to really focus on. I know what to yell at them about. I know what to tell them to start doing. Whereas those conversations are harder with newer people. But, you know, at the same time, we'll sit there and, I mean, if you buy a bike from me, even if you know exactly what bike you want, you know, you're not leaving for an hour and a half. Like if you come in the door, I mean, maybe some people can just get their bike and they're like, I'll do everything, blah, 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 I know what I'm doing. But typically it's an hour and a half process without even having to decide on the bike.
Whether it's you, me, or Brett, like there's a good chance you're going to sit there and talk for quite a while. And even then, like we had a dude looking at a Slash. I think I was talking to him for like 2 or 3 hours before he left. Yeah. And I was outside like riding bikes with him and stuff, like just trying to get him to ride it and get a feel for it.
It is neat, and that's why I fell in love with mountain biking, because I felt like cyclists a lot of times did have that elitist attitude you talk about, and that really sucked. In St. Louis 5 years ago, every shop was a road shop. Momentum says maybe they weren't. I don't know. I didn't ever go an hour outside of St. Louis to get to their shop. That was actually the one shop I never visited before I opened. Momentum. Because I got to like Granada and what is that other shop out there? Well, we all know my feelings about St. Charles. Anyways, dude, I had to go to Big St. Charles. Hey, I shouldn't have known that I noticed my face, like after I left Big St. Charles, like driving up the highway, like I just had like this like grimace on my face, and like I had like 3 people pull out in front of me.
That was just 70. I think it's just highway.
Well,
70.
just different places driving around St. Charles. I was like, oh, I hate the driving around here. Every road's got a curb. and I drive a gigantic truck with big ass wide wheels. So like, I'm just like, this is so, it's not me.
Yeah.
And then like, I just had this like, I just noticed this like weird, like tense look on my face just driving down the highway in St. Charles. I was like, I gotta get out of here. But anyway, where was I going with that? Oh yeah, but every shop was road focused. So that, I think that's where maybe a lot of that attitude came from. And the mountain bikers seemed more welcoming to me. You know, I'd go to like our Gateway Off-Road Cyclist meetings. Everybody was super awesome. And then I found that in doing these events and having to do everything we did to get the park started, I did hang out with, I met a lot of the elitist type people. And then I found that those same people are also mountain bikers. So it's not just road bikers that have those elitist, cliquey nonsense. I also have had to deal with it. And I continue to have people like try to tell me I'm not a mountain biker or like all kinds of stuff. It's like, I built a mountain bike park. Like I built the first directional trails in St. Louis. You need to say I'm a mountain bike? I own a shop called the Mountain Bike Shed.
Yeah.
Like all I do is mountain bikes all day. Just because I had an injury and I couldn't ride a mountain bike for last year, that doesn't mean I'm not a mountain biker anymore. And I own a shop, and it's like, holy crap! If these shops who call themselves mountain bike shops are going around trashing or saying I'm not a mountain biker, when no one's done more for mountain biking in St. Louis in the last 10 years than me, like I don't know. I can't imagine what it would feel like for just somebody new or somebody who just got into it and they're on their crappy hardtail that's constantly breaking or constantly coming in the shop trying to not spend a ton of money, trying not to get upgraded to a $3,000 full suspension bike yet. I can only imagine what they go through at that point. Like, it doesn't make any sense. And I've come to find out there are cliquey people in mountain biking. There's cliquey people in road cycling. There's cliquey people in this. There's cliquey people in that. And then people like Jenna come in or other road cycle. Like we've got a family here. All the brothers are big into it. They're all the nicest people in the world. I've met a ton of super nice, really great road cyclists that come into the shop. So, you know, it's kind of helped me too. It's like, oh, I was being an elitist mountain biker by saying that all road bikers are elitist and snotty. It's like not all road bikers are elitist and snotty, and not all mountain bikers are kind of dirtball. So
yeah, I mean, it's when you're inside the community, it's hard to see it.
How big of dirtballs we are, or the elitist part?
Both.
Yeah,
both.
Yeah, that's a problem. We're dirtball elitists.
Yeah,
that's a nasty combination.
There's a heck of a lot of gatekeeping that goes on, and I've learned to read that pretty fast. Yeah. That'll tell you precisely who the insecure people are, and that's generally a signal for me to kind of, all right, these are not who I'm going to be hanging around. But the same thing I think applies to just athletics in general, because I've read a book once where the whole premise of the thing was you don't have to be going out, you know, like me training for 200 milers and then also riding from St. Louis to Louisville in 4 days. Like, I've been labeled an extreme athlete, and they're like, I'm just not as athletic as you. Like, you can do any level of just going out and exert yourself, even if that's only 20 minutes. You still quantify as an athlete, regardless of kind of what volume you're doing. And that just applies to, you can put that philosophy in everyday life, but with like the disparity between, oh, what discipline do you ride? Like, we're all cyclists at the end of the day. We all turn pedals. So it's like, if you're really that focused on who's who, then it's like your focus is in the wrong place.
Yeah. I mean, whether you're on pavement or like hitting the jumps at like figure 8. Like, I was there last night. I was beat.
No.
Like, more so than I would feel like on a normal trail ride.
Well, it's
like,
it's crazy too, because like road bikers all say the mountain bikers like, you guys are crazy. I can't believe you do that, this and that. And then mountain bikers are all like, to road bikers, like, you guys are crazy. I'm not brave enough to do that, you know? So
sit and pedal for 6 hours.
Yeah. And that brings up a good point. Like, yeah, we are all cyclists. And ultimately, when it comes down to it, we all have the same motivation. We're all getting the same thing out of that. And even like, buddy of mine, Rando J, if anybody wants to look him up on Facebook, he puts on a big street riding competition here in St. Louis, does down in Washington and stuff. But anyway, he had put a post up, and he's not a mountain biker. He's a big boy. He's very athletic and very skilled on his street bike. He can do all kinds of stunt stuff that's very scary. But he put a post up. He was, I suppose, riding with no helmet. But his hat flew off, favorite hat, and he lost it. And the hat flies off, and then it's his favorite hat. So he goes back and he drives real slow through that area to try to look for it, back and forth, never finds it. And then once he didn't find it, he realized, oh, I've done this before where I've lost stuff. And on a motorcycle, when it falls off, it's gone. You're never finding it because you're going 50, 60 miles an hour. It hits the dirt and just boom.
Your phone flies out. It's gone.
Yeah. I lost a GoPro and could not find it. So yeah, that stuff's gone. And that was his point. He was like, it made me realize. I was like, oh, the same thing. Anytime you're on two wheels, essentially, I think the thought processes stay the same, because he had this enlightening moment to where he was like, oh yeah, it's kind of like life. Sometimes you lose things, and no matter how much you want to find it or want it to work or think that, okay, I'll just drive by one more time, that things don't always come back, and that you keep repeating those same things. And he knew better. He's lost things on his bike before, knows that it doesn't come up, but because it was his favorite hat, he was willing to then waste another 2 hours driving this stretch of road trying to find his hat or whatever it may be. And so you get that life lesson. And I think on the mountain bike trail, that's a big thing I pitch for people, especially young people getting into riding, is you're going to learn a lot about yourself. You're going to have those philosopher moments that you create in your head to be like, oh, I just did this, and that relates to my real life this way. I didn't give up and I made it finally. I could not give up in regular life and make it finally, or blah, blah, blah. And so whether you're on, a street bike, you're not doing a physical aspect of it. But whether you're on a road bike or a mountain bike, we're all still reaching these same conclusions about pushing ourselves and what that means, and self-reflection. I mean, if you're going to be a mountain biker, or especially if you're going to be a road biker, you're going to spend a ton of time on the saddle, whether you're riding with other people or not. You're alone in your own head when you're on that bike. So anybody who rides a bike is ideally going to be fairly introspective. Some people, maybe the competition part outweighs that. But I think for most of us and most cyclists, and unfortunately the elitist people, or when there is a problem, like I'm sure there's been customers that came into this store who left, pissed off, came in excited, maybe talked to me. Maybe I was having a bad day. Maybe I thought I was answering something one way and they took it a different way. Or maybe I was actually being snotty because I was in a bad mood and some snotty customer just left. I'm so fired up or whatever. But so I'm sure that happens with me. And I'm a person that's very conscious of those things and tries to do it.
Well, even then, it's a question, we've had people come in, asking for brakes to be looked at and, wondering why it's not working and stuff, when they're, 11-year-old avid juicies, which if you know anything about those, those are not good. And they're very confused when you tell them oh, you need a whole new brake set, which is going to cost $100 or so.
Right. That's a shittier version of SRAM.
Yeah. And for someone who doesn't understand the market, that's mind blowing.
Right.
And that is super off putting to come in thinking, oh, might be a $20 fix, and in reality you're spending $100 to $150 if you're including a new rotor or something too.
Yeah, or our entry level mountain bikes come with forks that say not for off-road use.
Yeah.
And it's just because
that's
they're
absurd.
Well, they're cool forks, so then people will break them. They come in, they're completely hydraulic. They're I just bought this bike, the forks broke, and I was like, oh, well, did you ride with the lockout on? No.
Yeah.
You did, because that's why it's locked out like this. I know that. They don't remember, and they may not even recall doing that. So as far as they know, they just went on a couple easy mountain bike rides. However, I know how that actually happens, and the little thing that they missed that they didn't even think twice about that destroyed their bike. So then when I say to them, they're like, oh, well, isn't that a warranty? It's I guess, I don't know. I've never warrantied a Suntour fork, because if someone breaks it,
unfortunately,
it just means even if we get you a new one, you're just going to break it again. So what we really need to do is cut you a little bit of a discount on an upgrade and get you upgrade. And then, but for a lot of people, that's hard. And that's one that I don't really bend on, because it's because I've done it before where we were warranty your fork and then you get the new fork and it breaks again. And it's all right, now you just waste everybody's time where we should have just upgraded you for a little discount.
Well, I think that's the issue too. When you get into the issue of cheap stuff, and there's the question of, do you fix it or do you replace it? And then do you replace it with something better?
Right.
Because even then a cheap fork is still $200-$300. If you fix it, you're going to spend $200 to $300 just to fix it. Right. And then even an upgrade, you're still spending $500, $600, $700 on a new fork, which is absurd for a bike that already costs $850 out of the gate.
That's why we're going to let people come in this stand, work on their own stuff, realize it's unfixable. They don't have to get mad at me, and then we'll sell them new parts and show them how to install them. So yeah, we're pretty much at time. It was a fun little podcast. Hope everybody enjoyed that. Jenna is our road affiliate and our expert on everything road. Is there anything as our premier road expert here at the Mountain Bike Shed that you would like to leave our audience with?
I did like your idea of, especially locally here in Eureka, of trying to get a road thing, a organized ride started, be it on the weekend or just on the evening, after traffic dies down, now that we're in that season. I think that would be super important. I'm only familiar with a handful of the people here that ride road, as I'm, still fairly new to the area. I've been here less than 8 years at this point, but it sounds like there's some potential for that. Like I've met, some new people that are even willing to kind of drive out here to get away from the traffic. And I mean, Wildwood, just heading north of Eureka, a lot of climbing, but very scenic, well-paved roads. And I mean, I've ridden a lot of places and I really do quite enjoy riding here. So I think that would be a really good motive, especially if you want to introduce more road stuff to the shop. That's a good place to start.
Yeah. And I just want to introduce more people to cycling, and mountain biking is not for everyone. And yeah, it is beautiful out here and we don't have traffic. So, we're seeing more people get injured, on different wheeled devices and stuff around town, not around this town in St. Louis, great, like downtown St. Louis and stuff, because there is so much traffic. So yeah, I would love to be able to offer something to people to where there's organized rides out here where people can be a little bit safer, and just like hanging out here so much nicer. Like, especially if you're coming from the city, like driving down 44 is absolutely beautiful. There's never going to be traffic on 44 coming down. So it's going to be a calm, relaxing ride. You're going to see rolling hills on either side. Once you get to town, it's very laid back and low key here in Eureka. So yeah, I think it would be a really good vibe, and I think road riding is very stressful. I get on high alert. I don't do well with, like my flight or flight response fires very easily, thanks to my brain injuries and stuff. So like I can't ride road. I don't think I'll ever be able to do it unless maybe I am in a big group, because immediately if a car just drives by me, my flight or flight's going to hit, and then I'm going to have adrenaline flowing through my body, and it's not going to be a good look for cyclists.
This applies to mountain biking, I'm sure as well. But like whenever you're on the road, you can't be an idiot. You can't act like a deer and make sudden movements. You have to ride predictably. And there's a lot of people that does spook because they don't feel capable of it, or, they do have like those knee-jerk reactions to stimulus. And, you kind of have to train yourself out of that. Be aware of your surroundings. Very big on situational awareness. And it's just your situation's constantly changing on the road. So it is just kind of a different feeling.
You just made me realize a very scary thought that like possibly part of me rehabbing to do that is to desensitize myself to such things. So maybe I do need to begin riding a bicycle on the road more to see if I can't train myself to desensitize, which would help me overall in life too. It'd be one of those good lessons I'd learn on the saddle that I could take with me in other parts of my life. So that's good. I did order a Trek 1120. That's going to be my road bike. As of right now, that's what I plan on.
Well, it's happening. You heard it.
It's a 29 plus.
It's a 3-inch
touring bike, but I'm going to ride road on it. Yeah. I might have to put a little motor on it if I ever want to be able to ride with Jenna, or I won't be able to keep up. So I have a feeling that bike's not going to go over like 12 miles an hour.
It's like a 30-something pound bike. It's not light.
No. They have a carbon version. I might get a carbon fork for
That's still not light.
Yeah, that's true. It's still going to be like 26 pounds.
Rotating weight of 29ers with 3-inch wheels or 3-inch tires.
I like it.
Yeah.
All right, sweet. That's it. So yeah, guys, look forward to we'll be back next Tuesday. Ideally, Jenna will come back and hang out with us at some point, and we'll be able to talk some van life stuff, which is really fun. She's been doing it for the last 3 years, kind of pre-pandemic. You have a really minimalist setup that's dope, and yeah, so we'll talk a little bit about what that looks like. And how you get by and stuff. So folks should look out for that.